Meet Oscar, a dog whose story of survival and overcoming moves even the hardest of hearts. When we found him, he was locked in a dark room, surrounded by trash and without any shred of dignity. There, in the most cruel isolation, Oscar lived in constant fear, always hiding in a corner, as if waiting for the next moment of terror. A neighbor, upon noticing his devastating condition, made the complaint that changed the course of this poor dog's life. Oscar's body was a portrait of his suffering. So thin that he looked like a walking skeleton, he had wounds all over his skin. The most affected areas were his head, lips, nose, and cheeks, which were severely injured. He had contracted a serious infection from living in that deplorable environment where filth and neglect reigned. The infection had already caused septicemia, and the level of toxins in his blood was dangerously high. His fragility was evident. Dehydrated, exhausted, and in terrible pain, Oscar was fighting for his life. The wounds he bore, both physical and emotional, were profound. The swelling and pain from his wounds were almost unbearable. When the doctors tried to touch him to help, Oscar's fear was palpable. He trembled with every touch, fearing that the treatment would be just another form of abuse, like the one he had suffered his entire life. His trust in humans had been completely destroyed. He could barely look at us, as if he expected to be punished at any moment, just as his previous owner had been, who had subjected him to years of abuse and neglect. Oscar had never known what love was. He grew up trapped in that dark room, never experiencing affection, care, or even a gentle touch. His eyes, always downcast and filled with fear, told the story of a lifetime of abuse. He avoided our gaze, trembling, as if he was accustomed to being punished for disobeying any order. His thin, bruised body was a tragic reflection of the cruelty he had endured. But all that began to change the day we found him. Thanks to a tip from that compassionate neighbor, Oscar was taken out of that nightmare and taken to a place where he could finally receive the care he needed. What if the neighbor hadn't acted? Oscar might never have left that dark room. This question haunts us, but fortunately, his destiny took a different turn. On the 10th day after the rescue, we saw the first signs of transformation. Feeling safe and surrounded by people who wanted to help him, Oscar began to trust again. He realized that we were there to care for him, not to hurt him. His wounds began to heal, and his behavior changed completely. He went from a terrified dog to a happier, more confident animal. However, his traumas were still present. He ate at an astonishing rate, as if he feared that the food would disappear. This behavior was a reflection of his years of deprivation and hunger. Day after day, we closely followed his recovery. And finally, the big moment arrived. Oscar was ready to be discharged and start a new life. The first time he put his paws on the grass was an unforgettable moment. His happiness was visible in every movement, as if he were discovering the world for the first time. His eyes shone with joy and gratitude, and he approached us seeking affection, something he had never experienced before. That moment symbolized the fulfillment of a dream that Oscar may not have even known he had, a life of freedom, affection, and love. At the shelter, he quickly adapted to everything. He gained weight, regained his health, and over time, his appearance became more beautiful, reflecting the well-being he now felt. Oscar became loved by everyone, receiving attention and love from every person who crossed his path. We wanted, in every way, to make up for all the suffering he had endured. Since the day he was rescued, Oscar had already gained 8 kilos, a clear sign of his recovery and that he was flourishing in his new life. It all seemed like a dream, but Oscar's journey was not over yet. We knew he deserved a forever home, where he could be loved by a family that valued him. And not long after, a kind woman contacted us, willing to offer this loving and safe home. We were happy to see this beautiful chapter begin in Oscar's life. He, who had been through so much suffering, now had the chance to live a bright future, surrounded by love. Oscar's story is proof that with compassion, patience, and dedication, even the most traumatized animals can transform and flourish. Now, he has a new home and a life full of hope ahead of him. Oscar's future is just beginning, and he can finally experience the happiness he always deserved.